Hello, my friend. I am back on today's podcast with Mr. Mark Fisher, and we're taking a little walk down memory lane through Mark Fisher Fitness, and we're taking a look at some mistakes we made, specifically marketing mistakes. And so we go through some things we think we did really well over the years at Mark Fisher Fitness, some things we wish we had a redo on, and all of this is so that you can learn to not follow in our footsteps when there's things we wish we would have done differently. And so if you want to hear Mark and I deconstruct all of our lessons learned from marketing at Mark Fisher Fitness for 15 years, then keep on listening, my friend. It's a great conversation. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business of Unicorns podcast. I'm back again with Mr. Fisher, and we're super excited because we're launching, or kind of relaunching, a brand new, newly improved, updated, better than ever course called Gym Growth Blast Off. Fisher, tell people about it.
Yeah, so essentially, if you are a gym owner or perhaps a future or aspiring gym owner and you want more leads, if you're not getting enough leads, which means you're not getting enough clients and you're not making the revenues you want to make, then this is the course for you. It's everything you need, nothing you don't. We worked very, very hard to make a very accessible, doable, systematic, done for you set of action steps to drive more leads. So if that sounds good to you, then you should get the course, and you should do it by Tuesday, May 27th, because you'll save $300.
I love it. Well, the link's down below in the show notes. Go click it, learn more, and we hope you take advantage because we're so proud of this, and we think it'll teach all of you to create the marketing machine that you all want in your gym. So go do it. And speaking of marketing, that's what we're talking about today. Actually, we're going to go back in timeline, Fisher, and talk a little bit about MFF. I know recently you've been, we've both been reflecting on our years at MFF since it's a little bit in the rearview mirror at this point, and you wanted to reflect a little bit on some marketing mistakes that you feel like you've made over the years. And so where do you want to start? What are some things that have been coming up on you thinking about marketing do-overs you wish you had?
God, yeah, I have unfortunately so many. So, I think the thing to note about having thought a lot about kind of our journey, right, is we had the unusual position where we were just like Parker Lewis Can't Lose, to reference an obscure 1980s TV show. We just were on fire outside the gate. Right. That's not to say we didn't have like other kinds of challenges, maybe other emotional challenges, but the MFF, like, not a secret, like killed it, like did $1 million our first year, did 4 million by our fourth year, just like Looney Tunes. And a lot of that was because the product was very, very good. I think if you think about marketing strategies as generating leads and nurturing leads and making offers to leads, I think that actually the nurturing offers, I actually think we did a great job. And I think we were doing email marketing like very strong from day one. I used to write like 3 blog posts a week, which now I'm like, that was crazy. Yeah. We posted on Facebook when that was organic. You got an organic play, and a lot of our members did a lot of that because we had a 6-week makeover program. So people were posting their pictures and tagging us. So we were nurturing the hell out of our existing audience. And I would say the Facebook post also drove a lot of new leads and word of mouth for us.
A ton of referrals. It was really like mostly referrals. Yeah.
It was basically all damn referrals, right? And we just blew it out so hard in ways that a lot of you with love can't replicate, because what was unique about MFF, in addition to, I say like with all humility, being like just the fucking Avengers, as far as like how good that team was and how consistent we were getting results and how dialed we were, like really destroying the service and like really dialed in on the training and always, getting results. I mean, it was the thing, right? And what laid the foundation for that was we just knew a ton of people, because myself and one of our co-founders, Brian Patrick Murphy, knew a ton of people. And the Broadway community is just a unique situation where we had a geographically insular community of tens of thousands of people, all oriented around a very specific radius that was very close to where we got the clubhouse, and it just took off, and that was amazing. And while we did a lot of things well, in retrospect, I'm like, we really never figured that out, or figured it out too late. Or so, as an example, when we think about other ways of generating leads, it really was all the word of mouth game, right? And for us, like that was like plenty and like all we needed up to a certain point, right? But even for a business that was successful at ours, at a certain point, you can't outsell attrition for forever. And when word of mouth is just like, I kind of hope people will come and bring their friends, is the main strategy, you can do better, right? And I'll just say in brief, like that's maybe an example of how you don't necessarily even need to do everything right, because we were doing a lot of things well enough that we super overperformed. But in retrospect, here's one thing, and there's a separate I could share, but one thing that we just didn't like do well in the beginning, which I think was okay. We didn't really do like any follow up, like kind of at all, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
we would like we really struggled to get. I think it took us a minute operationally, and this is the good problem you have. Your business breaks. You get very good at like driving leads and sales. You can break on the back end, and our team worked their ass off, and the people that we love and we're still friends with that are very very talented, but at that time, I don't, first of all, the standards were different, but in retrospect, like we didn't really have any system for following up. Also, again, it was a different era, but like we didn't do any text message marketing until like 2019. I mean, we were so late to that game. 2012, I don't think people were doing a lot of text message marketing, but like, I don't know, we were doing a lot of aggressive lead follow up, which again, to our defense, because we were so damn busy signing people up for memberships and making money, we were so busy dealing with like the tsunami of word of mouth that we didn't really have an occasion to. But in retrospect, even in 2012, we probably could have had better systems for following up. They wouldn't have been automated because that wouldn't have been a thing, and maybe we wouldn't have been texting yet. But I don't know. It's funny because I think now, and I'm like, well, I don't know. People were texting in 2012. Like maybe it's unfair to expect us to have been ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But certainly by like 2016, 2017, 2018, we were still an email only game. And even at that time, there were some people you're just never going to get through emails. So anyway, that's one that immediately comes to mind. And again, I don't think it really was like 2000, end of 2019. We finally got our shit together when I went finally out and hired help. And I was like, okay, we need some help to take this to the next level. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add or any memories of that era.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think, I just want to reiterate the thing that you said that I think is a useful message for folks is that early on when you first open, I don't think it's a wrong strategy to really focus on just making the product and the service the best it can be and being really remarkable so that people just kind of have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think,
Yep.
I don't know that we were doing that as consciously as I state it right here and now, but we
Yep.
did have some sense, or at least I remember having a sense of
Yeah.
everyone's talking about this. No one can help
Yeah.
but tell their friends. And we would have a
Yeah.
party after our Snatch in 6 Weeks program. Everyone would bring at least one or two friends. And then we had, 50 to 100 people doing it each round, sometimes more than 100, which meant the parties were like 200-300 people. Right. And so when you're pulling in that kind of attention, that I don't think that's wrong. And just to use a non-fitness example, the Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts up until I think maybe 5 or 8 years ago, didn't run any commercials. You would have never seen a commercial for the Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts for most of their existence. And their whole play was exactly this: make the experience remarkable enough that people are going to tell everyone they know about every moment they spent at this hotel or resort. And there's some brands and experiences that can work for. But I think, it's tough because the gym these days, to be really remarkable and so much that people want to talk about you is tough. It's a tough bar. I think we were just silly and weird and loud and colorful enough to have caught that, but I don't know if it's a strategy for everyone, but I want to acknowledge that is a way to go. That is a way to go, but I think a better way to go, what we've learned, is to think about marketing like having a diversified portfolio, right? That there's you have your few poles in the water, and I think the mistakes I wish we would have done is I wish we would have wrapped our arms around two things earlier that could have been helpful. One, you mentioned already, lead follow-up. Just when we capture a lead, just being more consistent. I remember we would walk away from some of our Snatch in 6 Weeks parties with like a stack of like 50 or 100 postcards that guests filled out who came to the party and had name, phone number, and email if we could read it, because everyone was mostly drunk. So the penmanship wasn't stellar, but we would decipher what we could, and we would maybe send them one email. After the event, which is just like, as we know now, just laughably not enough, right? And I don't even remember if that email had like a really good offer. It was just like, thanks for coming, come hang out with us. Like it was not terribly. We did something, but I wish I know we should go look them up.
I don't have a memory of all things. I think the offer was good. I do think also we did add them to our email service. Right? Again, I think
and that's what we did well, right?
And we would follow up like long-term nurture, like farmers.
But there's no email. There was no dedicated email series or text.
Yeah,
or
there was
phone
like
call.
a single email of like, hey, do you want to come do Just Hooking Up, which was the name of like our trial, or
totally.
Make Me
So I think
Ninja,
that's one. Is just the follow up. I think the other thing is thinking about we were responsive to referrals and we drove referrals at parties. But other than that, we didn't really proactively push referrals in like a systematic way that I can
Yeah.
remember. And so the
Yeah.
fact that that was so hot and working for us, we really could have thrown more gasoline on that fire.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something about just being more strategic about that.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
now I see, with the gyms we work with all the time, referrals, even long term, can be your real bread and butter for lead generation if
Yeah.
you wrap your arms around it
100%.
and are
Yeah.
thoughtful. And so those are two that are very obvious from the early
Yeah.
days. And then I think the other thing that we got to eventually, and I think we were late to this party, is creating the expectations that in some ways, everyone on the team has to have their finger on the pulse of sales and lead generation in
Mm.
some way,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
culturally, that like everyone's job
Yeah.
here is to care about getting new people in the door. And whether everyone has like a role or responsibility that's directly tied to that or accountability to that, that's to be determined, gym to gym. And not
Yep.
everyone probably should in every gym. But for us, we were just really kind of late to the party, even talking about that, talking about lead generation or the sticky S word of sales. Right. And so I just wish those conversations would have happened sooner.
Yeah.
So that's my other kind of mistake, is that just not embedding that into our culture sooner and
Yeah.
having to kind of like force feed it in 5 or 6 or 7 years in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, I remember, I don't know if it was like 2014 maybe
Yeah.
that we started to get serious about it. So, it wasn't like 10 years in, but it was like
No.
3 years in.
Yeah.
And even more troublesome, part of the issue we had, which a lot of you will run into, and this is, by the way, this is like the most common gym owner experience.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about marketing and sales. You're very good. You grow clientele with your, just because people want to work with you. You're growing on word of mouth. You start to hire some other trainers. You want them to be great trainers. You hire them. You grow up to a certain point, and then you're realizing you're doing all the lifting alone. You start to study sales and marketing, and now you're interested in it because you need to for your role. You start to be kind of interested. You start to understand it. Now you try to give the gospel to your team, and they're like, hell no, arms folded, digging their feet in, because like, well, I don't want to do sales. I didn't sign up to do sales. I'm a trainer.
Yeah.
And again, that's a perfectly normal progression. The reality is not everyone in your team maybe is going to be necessarily doing sales in a formal way. But I can remember there being like a real kickback from people on the team being like,
Yeah.
this, like they were just so grossed out by and admittedly that I think that was a function of the particular American subcultures we moved in, but they were like grossed out about like us even like talking about sales stuff. And we were like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And we got there. And I think, and with all credit to our team at that time and in the years since,
Yeah.
people have learned to really embrace that. And we got there eventually. It's just one of those things that it's so useful to set that expectation on day one when you can. For all you listeners, just to get clear about like, we all keep these jobs because we all have some role to play in lead generation, even if it's just making sure your clients stay long-term and book their next visit, or it's having, conversations about Google reviews, or having conversations about testimonials or referrals, right? Every trainer on the team and everyone who works in the building, has some role to play in generating leads and keeping people. And so I think that's a good one to focus on early.
Yeah. And hey there, Business for Unicorns podcast listeners. If you haven't had a chance yet to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast, it would be so awesome if you take just a quick second to do that. And here's why. Number one, by leaving us a rating and review, you'll allow our podcast audience to grow so more gym owners can build a life and a gym they love. And number two, by leaving us feedback, you'll help us shape the future of the podcast so we know what you like, we know what you don't like, and we know what types of content is resonating and what else should we create for you. Thank you so much for your consideration. And now back to the show. Yeah.
Any other kind of big glaring wish I had a do-overs for marketing?
I mean, certainly, one that I think I would give us like a be on for the trajectory is, having an actual dedicated sales conversation. I don't think we rolled that out till 2015, 2016, maybe. Yeah. I don't remember. Again, some of this could be my memory is off. Like I know we
always
had
doing like a
sales.
FMS conversation, and that was often a conversion conversation. We just didn't really script it like a sales conversation.
I think
for
that's
a few
right
years.
Because we had the trainers were just doing it, and like it was like if there was a sales element was kind of half-hearted, and then in like 2015, 2016, Brian Patrick Murphy, one of our co-founders, the three of us worked together. The three of us were doing. We created the first version of an actual dedicated true sales conversation. And again, it wasn't like the previous thing wasn't working. Like we would, sell them into a low barrier offer. Again, we were good at offers. So offers were happening. It was like, there were a bunch of different ones. So it's not relevant which one it was, but there weren't that different structurally from the ones we might recommend now. Yeah. And then again, we were pretty good. So we would convert Some of them,
Yep.
and even then, not always like the sheer number that otherwise like you would think. So I think getting a dedicated sales conversation
Yeah.
maybe was a little bit late.
And,
Another,
and getting on the same page. For me, having not really done a sales role before, having to jump in to do those, having like a real structure for what the conversation is, what order it happens in, to have some talking points
yeah,
for it,
yeah,
for us to practice it. We really
yep,
dove in with both feet. I went in to do those sales conversations really for the first time as a salesperson in my life,
yeah,
and I felt pretty confident in doing them. I was the owner, right? So like clearly I had
yep,
a dog in the race, but
yep.
ultimately, like I was new to it. I think all of us really were, and so the fact that we did start with that much structure, I think, was valuable.
Yeah, and I think that brings to mind maybe one other thing I'll mention on the route to wrapping this up, because I think the thing that's different now for you all listening is you have information. Arguably, your problem is you have
Hmm.
too much information.
Yeah.
Back in our day, we had not enough information except
Yeah.
for like business books. So we were reading Daniel Pink's To Sell as Human. Great book about the philosophy of sales, really awesome.
Yeah.
Not really the most tactical for what you need to know to run a sales conversation as a gym owner.
Yeah.
But again, in even in the early 2010s, there just wasn't like fitness business podcasts. There weren't the coaching groups. There weren't all the things that you all have available now. Like I said, you all listening largely have the opposite problem, right? You're listening to like all these podcasts and all these different people. You don't always have a system for when you're doing a given thing, but it's still net. I think you're better off arguably than we were, because we had to
Yeah.
create our own sales conversations by like just reading like Robert Cialdini's Influence and be like, I guess we'll do this.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that it didn't work. I think actually that sales process, I think, got pretty well dialed in, particularly as compared to something like Follow Up, which again, my memory really wasn't until like 2019. I think related, the other one that we really whiffed on was Facebook ads. We
Sure.
super whiffed on. I blame your husband, Frank. I blame Andrew. No,
Fair.
I
That's fair.
not
Let's get him
really.
on the podcast.
I blame Andrew and Kyle
Get him
Young.
to
No,
defend
no.
himself. Yeah.
But seriously, we again, and we also we didn't know any better, and I think to some extent we were the victim of our own success of having enough money that we were able to hire like actual competent people, like who had actual jobs and had done like actual digital marketing. But in retrospect, the way one digital markets, it's not universally applicable, right? And this is not a critique. I love both of those human beings, but we weren't like buried with so many leads in 2017, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I don't think we did like bad. I think we definitely got some play, but a lot of people, some of you even listening, if you were a gym owner and you figured out ads, which a lot of people did, because this is when you started seeing the rise of some of these coaching groups, we didn't really ever get that figured out, I think, at scale. And again, we had a paid ad strategy going, but even then, I remember we even outsourced it to like, very expensive paid ad. I can't remember the name of the
I don't remember
company we
either.
were with,
But
like
my
Ad Hoc.
memory is like a lot of them just used the excuse that we were in New York and it was a hard market to figure out for Facebook ads at the time. That
Which,
was
to
like
be fair,
which might have been true, right?
might have
But
been true,
yeah.
and that might have been true, but we definitely were like investing in retrospect, I think, like a lot of money
Yeah.
for like these bigger companies that were not fitness specific. And again, that's another advantage you all have now. Now, the disadvantage you all have now, still, it's not all roses over here, is the market has just gotten so much more competitive and it's gotten so much more expensive in any competitive market. And that's not the case everywhere, but the advantage you all have now is you can find, again, there's not an unlimited number. We recommend Gym Member Machine. We always shout out our partner. Or there are some gym owners that develop proficiency doing it themselves. That can also work as well.
Yeah.
So the advantage is now you can find people that are very good and really understand fitness sales. The disadvantage is it's not the blue ocean that it was. In our era in 2017, 2018, again, that's probably a fair critique. Maybe it never would have worked in New York City. Maybe I'm always like hoping for a different version of MFF and a different multiverse that never could have happened, because maybe New York never had those halcyon days that, I hear about people getting like, like $3 leads, and we're converting it like 50% of our paid ads are getting into memberships. That was never something that we had experienced. So, and again, we got there eventually, but in retrospect, I could have moved quicker to probably find fitness industry specific solutions. And by the time we did, it worked, but 2019 was already getting kind of late in the game. And of course, and then of course we smashed right into COVID. But admittedly, the lucky thing for us is we were really able to leverage in the way a lot of people weren't through 2020, because we grew a massive online platform of like at one point with like 800 people doing online Zoom workouts. And we drove that through paid ads. And even then it was bloody oceany because once COVID happened, obviously everybody
Yeah.
went online and was spending heavily, but we did get some era. And then actually after the tide went out with COVID, again, it still works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's just
Yeah.
been,
Well,
never as easy for us as I hear about some of you all had in 2016.
that's true. It's true. I am always envious of that era. Well, in the interest of wrapping this up, we've covered a lot of places where obviously we made some mistakes. Hopefully, you can learn from some of the stories we're telling here about
Yep.
our some of our wounds and wistful do overs. But all of you can ignore that, and you can also ignore that by buying our new course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the information we have is in Mark's free book, which we'll link down in the thing. And then if you want to learn how to execute on all the marketing strategies
Yeah.
in Mark's
Yeah.
free book, we have this brand new course, Gym Growth Blastoff, where we walk you
Yep.
through step by step how to build the systems that we wish
Yep.
we had built from the start. And
Yep.
so go click the link down in the bio and down in the show notes, and do it before, what's the promo, Fisher?
$300 off if you buy by end of day Tuesday, May 27th.
May 27th, May 27th, $300 off. So go do it before then, and you won't regret it. I think it's a self-paced course. You can do it at your own pace, and will help you build literally all the systems we just talked about here. Will help you walk through step by step. Awesome. Well, thanks for a great conversation as always, Fisher. It was fun walk down memory lane. I'll see you on the next one.
Bye.